to the islands. I'm just going to take you on a quick tour around, and hopefully you'll feel confident poking around and learning the rest of it. So if we take a look, we've got the north, the middle and the south island. Well, that's what I call them anyway. And each island has a number of towns and also has, you might notice, just a couple of some little squares there. And every time the cursor changes into that hand, then that means there's something you can click on. So to get the general information for the island, you can go to the visitor centre here, and that will take you through a whole lot of information. You can also just do what a 5-year-old would do, and that would be just to click around and see what happens. So you go back there. So what I would encourage you to do is click into any town, have a look through, and you'll see we've got all these houses. And we've also got a whole lot of municipal buildings. So we've got the hall here, and for each one, if you just click into it, you can see the type of information you can get. So what's interesting here is probably the births and the deaths. You get a list of everyone there. And you'll notice that the dates here are not our dates, they're island dates. So if I scroll down to the bottom, goodness me, that's a long way down. Let's go right down to the bottom. So this will be the most recent at the bottom because it just adds on at the end, 18,277. If I go back up here, you'll see the year is 277 and this is day 19. So that would have happened yesterday on the islands. I can't remember if that was a birth or a death now, but whatever it was, it happened yesterday. So I'm going to go back into a town. And so that was the hall. What else have we got here? We've got a clinic. So we can see doctors, nurses, midwives, patients, and women who are registered with the antenatal clinic. We can, let's see what other bill, we've got the school here. This looks like a very small school. Year 2, Year 6, not sure what's going on with that school. Anyway, that's interesting. I wonder what that's like in other towns. That seems a little bit strange. The bureau. So this is the demography for this town with males and females broken down into the age groups. Employment, we get lists of people in the town by their occupation. And recreation, we have lists of people in the town based on their clubs and societies. So that might be quite handy too. Now, how else can we find people? We've done the school, we've done the bureau. And I think the municipal buildings are usually towards the top. So at this stage, I'm starting to think maybe there aren't any more. Now, I know some of the towns have got universities. I think Hoffen has got a university, and I think you can tell the size of the town by the size of the dot here. So I think Hoffen is quite a large town, whereas Helluland is a small town. So let's go into Hoffen. So we've got the hall, we've got the school. Let's see if there's more kids in this school. So that might have been a small town before. And we've got the clinic again, we've got the bureau again. Now we've got a university. So we can see people by faculty. So these are probably the staff where it says faculty, I think, and the students in each faculty. That would make sense. And the ethics committee is not sitting. Right, we might not be needing the ethics committee. And what else was I going to look for? A hospital to see if there was... Oh, there we go. So we've got clinics and hospitals. Oh, they got no patients. Immunology, cardiology, oncology. So there won't be too many hospitals around on the islands. You might have to poke through some of these bigger dots if you're after hospitals. So we've had a look at the visitor centre, we've had a look at the towns, and there are also some little square dots that aren't labelled, but you can click into them as well. So these are climate stations. I'm not sure if you would need this for anything, but it's worth knowing what's there. I think there is also an agricultural centre somewhere. Nope, another climate station. but I don't anticipate we'll be needing agriculture. And the last thing that we can look at is the academy. So we've got the Proceedings of the Island Academy, and you can actually look through some projects that students have done from other universities. Sometimes these are quite nice to read just because they're much shorter than a full research paper. Okay, so let's take a look at a person and see what information we can get from an individual person once we have found them. What's this one here? Just saw another little, so here we've got a field station. I don't know how to use them, but if anyone works it out, do let me know. So that was that little square there. All right, let's find a person. I'm going to click into a house. This has got 2 people in it, Michael, who is 72, and Ursula, who is 69. So let's have a talk with Ursula. We've got a bit of her story. We've got her wealth, her parents, spouse, her children who presumably don't live with her, and we can add her as a contact. Now I think actually if we talk with her, she'll get added into our contacts anyway, and you can see this link up the top for contacts, which we'll have a look at in a second. So we can see her story from all the time back to when she was born. Again, don't know that we'll need this information, but it's worth knowing what we can find out. Tasks, we can't do anything to people without their consent, so we need to get her consent. And some people will refuse you, and if they don't want to talk to you, you just have to go away. That's their right. And you can see, because I've used the islands before, I've got some recent tasks showing up of the things that I have done before. This might be empty for you, but you can see there's a whole lot of things that we can do. We can look at her documents, we can look at some measurements on her, do some blood tests, and we can also do stuff to them in terms of experimentation. So we can give her a drink of some sort or a tablet or medication. Loads of stuff down there. When we ask her to do something or we take a measurement on her, this will take a little bit of time. So you need to think about the trade-off between the time that it takes to collect information and how useful it is. And that's a real world thing. Obviously, we always have to think about this trade-off between time and information. While she's doing that, we might just, I wonder if, oh no, she can't chat to us while she's doing this. And she hasn't completed it yet, so it's not showing up in her history. I was thinking, should we just stay here for a minute longer? Nearly done. And are we there? Come on. Right, so now she's done. And that then just skips back to the tasks. And you might be wondering, well, where is that information that from the test we just ran? And that will come up under the history. So everything you do will be recorded here in the history. Now, because the tasks do take a bit of time, when you actually come to running a study, you can open up a few people at once. So we could have given her a task and then gone away and given a task to someone else and then come back and checked her history later. You can also interview them. So Ursula, hi. How are you? I'm happy. That's good. Did you eat breakfast today? Okay, so they can answer some questions, and that's quite fun. If you want to be able to interview people for a study, make sure that you try out your questions first and that they can answer them. Because obviously for some things that they won't be able to give you a reasonable response, and so you won't be able to get any data from that. This can be quite time consuming, so often if we want to ask a standard set of questions to a large number of people, obviously we make a survey. So you can see in the task here there is the survey option and also the questionnaire option. Before we can use those, we need to set them up, and I'm not sure if these links actually show up before you've created the survey. So if you can't see this, that might just be because you haven't created it yet. So let me go up to the contacts. So that's the top right hand corner. And you can see here there's a link to the survey. So these are preset questions which the islanders can answer, so you can tick off whichever ones you want. Now I would advise not ticking off all of them just because it will take longer to answer. And if I just... Oh, you can't get down. There's an update bottom at the bottom of the screen. So when you tick them all off, you'll need to click the update button, and then you can, and then they'll be active in the survey. And there's also the questionnaire tool, and you can add in your own questions. Again, try these out in the interview first, because sometimes the wording has to be very specific. So for an epidemiological study, we were trying to find out if people had had diarrhea. And so we tried a few different versions of the questions, and they only worked if we had exactly the right phrasing. So if you have some trouble with that, let me know. And it may be that if we phrase it right, they can answer it, or it may be that they just can't answer a particular question. So that's the questionnaire tool. So if I go back to my contacts, I have got quite a lot of contacts. Now, where is Ursula? Oh, they might be, I can't remember her last name, but they're probably in alphabetical order. Not sure. Anyway, let's pick someone else. Let's talk to Hannah. And we could give her a survey. And that's going to take a little bit of time. But if we had a few people, we could go back to our contacts, pick someone else, give him the survey, and so on. And then we could come back to the history and get all their results at the end. Okay, so I hope you're feeling like you've got an idea of what's going on with these islands. And of course, all that the stuff you can do to the people, you can click through to people from any of these other options. I just want to make sure I find someone who's alive. Oh no, they have passed. Let's try another way of finding someone. So that was the hall. Let's go to the clinic. Oh, she looks very sad. Get her consent. So we found her through the clinic. So we've got different ways of finding people. We've got a range of stuff we can do with them once we have found them, and then we can collect their information through their history when they've done stuff for us. Is there an easy automated way to put all of this stuff into an Excel spreadsheet without having to type it all out? No, there's not, because this is meant to be a mock-up of real research, and most of the time it's actually quite time consuming going around and doing this. So if you're designing a study, you would set up your data collection sheet first, work out everything you need from people, and then you can go through and collect the information.